Artificial intelligence is redefining digital transformation at a pace and scale that demands urgent attention from boards and CEOs. The conversation is shifting from efficiency and cost reduction to intelligent-driven growth, innovation, and competitive differentiation. To discuss this, we have an amazing panel today with Ravi Bodla and Chandra Yeleshwarapu. The panel is moderated by Reena Atanasiadis. Ravi is a principal data and digital services at RSM US LLP. Ravi serves as the firm's Microsoft Data Services leader and leads the industrials data and analytics sector, where he empowers organizations to harness technology and data as strategic assets. Chandra is the former senior leader of product strategy and solutions at Halliburton, SAP, and Oracle. He's the co-author of multiple patents and patent applications. He's an investor and board member with several startups in the technology sector. Reena is a professor of finance at Concordia University. Her experience spans both academic and corporate worlds. She has held a national leadership position with a wealth management firm. Please welcome Ravi, Chandra, and Reena.
Thank you, Vanessa. Welcome, everyone. So for the next 20 minutes, we are going to have a chit-chat with these two lovely gentlemen, Ravi and Chandra, and we're going to focus on how AI is changing our digital universe. Specifically, we're going to focus on both sides of the equation, both the human and the organization, and we'll see just how AI is affecting the way we make decisions and we create value. Okay? So I'd like to set the topic by asking you, I guess, a foundational question. We used to talk in the past about different milestones in the digital transformation, things like big data and mobile and the cloud, up until recently when AI joined and basically took over everything. So here's the question. Is AI fundamentally different than all the other improvements in the digital universe? Is it a paradigm shift?
Hello? Okay. So I would say it's both right now. It's phenomenal, sort of game-changing technologies, but really what we see right now is that how it's applied throughout is really kind of just as another tool in a lot of ways, that where organizations they're not necessarily ready for it and they're not fully embracing it. But let's take a step back for a minute and we'll think about when we talk about digital transformation, what is that? Ultimately, over the last 15, 20 years, what we've spent our time with, right? When we talk about big data, we talk about the cloud, we talk about mobility. It was really about integrating systems. It was really about moving towards data-driven decision-making. It was really about digitizing processes. And when we start to think about with AI, it is actually fun. It will fundamentally change where we're going with this. It is when we move away from, instead of just applying it to a tool, taking it. Someone asked me this question this morning about, are we just solving problems in the same way with AI? And it's not. It's really about applying that as we continue to incorporate and embed AI into our organizations, make it kind of foundational to it. It starts to change the whole nature, the context of our organizations, our enterprises, where it now becomes, we really have to rethink and reshift how the organization works, right? It allows us as an organization, as an enterprise, to learn, to adapt, to become more intelligent, and we change and it starts to rethink and reshift our business models, our workflows, our processes, everything. If you think about just so much of what we do right now is really about verification and validation and review and those kinds of things. But with AI, we don't need to do that as much. It starts to become more of an AI-augmented, AI-supported sort of decision-making. And further and further along, as we continue down this path, it's not just that it's augmenting us, but it's also starting to allow us to actually build in, take those real-time signals, and actually start to AI starts to drive actions and starts to just drive decisions. And so over time, it will become this fundamental shift in how we operate within organizations. But right now, it's really being applied as a tool.
Chandra.
Yeah, I think the answer is yes, and it is a paradigm shift, but I'd like to kind of tell you why and how, and it builds upon a lot of the things that Ravin was really talking about. So let me kind of give you a context as to why it is a watershed moment in terms of the paradigm shift. The reason is, historically and all the way through industrial revolution to today, steps in process was used as a way to reach an outcome. So the entire industry today, all the organizations are based on knowing a process to drive to the outcome. Everything is built on that fundamental notion. And that notion is about to change dramatically with AI, which is outcome is the first thing that AI and generative AI tools and newer technologies are going to give. And it is going to be the process to refine the outcome, which is going to be the new way of working. And what that does fundamentally is organizations are today designed to have functional silos, which Ravin was talking about, to take people from one step of the process to the next, hand over their output to the next step, and then the next step and the next function, and so on and so forth. But if you then now talk about really starting with the outcome, there are two major changes that you need to think about. First is, current leadership is based on understanding the existing processes to go towards the outcome. That leadership has to either change in two ways. Either they have to change or they have to be changed out, right? So that's really the biggest paradigm shift. And then the second one is, because we were always taking milestones and steps to get to the outcome, most of these milestones and steps will probably be replaced, eliminated, or rethought through, which means a lot of the organizations that may be trying to use AI to get better, augment individuals and things like that, may actually not exist. So from my perspective, it kind of builds upon what Ravin was talking about, which is process leads to outcome, changes to outcome leads to refining of the process. Organizations need to be redesigned. We don't know what they are. I know there are some hypotheses on how these organizations need to be built, but I fundamentally don't think we fully know and appreciate this fundamental and tectonic change that's going to happen.
So if I could have just a quick response, perhaps even a guttural response, right? What do you find is the greatest misconception that businesses have right now when it comes to AI?
Well, I think my belief is that adding a data science team is going to solve the problem, and it is not a board and a business and a value decision. It is actually a technology decision, and I think that is the biggest misconception that I fight every day.
Ravi?
AI is not ChatGPT. Fundamentally, I think most of the organizations that I speak with, that's ultimately, they think about what they do at home, and they think, why can't I have this? Why is this? I should be able to just speak, and it tells me everything that I need to know. And that, honestly, is the biggest misconception, is that it's not just about generative AI, that there's so much more, and that there's so much below that in order to actually make that real.
Okay, so let's move on to the industry generally. So you both work with organizations and you address different clients in different sectors. Which industry do you think is the fastest or ahead in using AI successfully?
Where we've seen it a lot is the organizations in general, the technology sector without a question, financial services, healthcare, and I would say in manufacturing. But I would also say that there's a large sort of dichotomy with organizations in all of those sectors. You have a number of large organizations that are ahead of the game, but the vast majority of them are just starting to dip their toes in the water, even with these fast-moving sectors like technology, is they're just getting started with them.
Yeah, I think I'll just add to that by saying that where I'm seeing the biggest impact, the change, and the value is really in the speed with which I can now deliver software to my customers. What used to take me 5 years to go from idea to deployment and delivery of a particular software, I think I could do it in a fraction of time, just because not just the tools that are kind of coming out, it's just that the complete approach and the value chain of software delivery itself is fundamentally changing. And I think that is where you will see the biggest impact, not just to the end users, but also to the software development space of things. From a vertical perspective, I think it's very early to say, but all I can say is because of, I just came back from India and I was walking into LAX and I thought it's gonna be a long line to get through immigration because my global services expired. But I'll tell you the beauty of immigration this week, at least in LAX, was I didn't even have to take my passport out. There was a picture taken and I was in. It just took fraction of seconds. So what I'm seeing is that even older technology is getting a lot more deployed now across the various use cases. And so the impact of AI, just because a lot of these digital services are being used, is going to be transformational and exponential. So we're just gonna have to wait and see every 3 months how things change.
So there is the flip side, of course, right? And somehow AI could be overhyped. Have you experienced with your clients those kind of disappointments?
Well, you know, I think probably when Ford Motor brought its car, it was probably overhyped as well. And I still have, in San Jose, there is a car dealer that used to be the biggest carriage provider. It's still in business. I don't know how, but I think my take to this particular question is I don't think it's overhyped. I think what is overhyped is people thinking that it's going to take longer than it's actually going to take.
Yeah, adding on to what Chandra said, I would agree. I don't necessarily think it's overhyped, but I do think organizations don't think about all of the pieces, all the things that need to happen in order for this to be meaningful and to actually have true change in their organization. And so what you see, I think there was a Fortune article based on an MIT study just a few weeks back that talked about, I think, 70% of all sort of generative AI types of projects have been real failures. Now, you can also argue that failure in what definition, because there was a lot of learnings that happened with those, and there's a lot of underlying change that's actually occurring in those organizations when they started to do those projects. But from a core, what was my objective from those projects? They were failures.
Yeah, I think the only thing to add to it is it's the timing. Every large change of the nature that we're talking about takes a decade. So here, when I think about and talking about the inevitability of things, let us be very clear that you will see the biggest change. Every 3 months, you will see a change. But 10 years from now, when you look back upon where we are right now, it would be completely different. And that's really why, if some folks say it's hype today, let's have a conversation 10 years from now.
Yeah, fair enough. So let's focus on the individual now, on the human. If you have an executive that is at the start of that journey, what kind of questions should they be asking themselves before they jump in?
I think to me, first of all, each of these executives have to be honest with themselves. I remember about a decade ago, I was in a very large conference and I asked the question, do each of you think that a decade from now, there will be a self-driving car? And 10 years ago, not a single person, not a single exec in that particular forum raised their hands, okay? And so, but here it is, everybody in LA and in Phoenix, it's just city or the Valley of the Sun and Waymo. That's the way I see it at this point in time. And it's just taken 10 years to get to where we are. Now, we have not gone to a place where these are the cars running in probably India or some of the other places, and it'll take probably 25 years to get there, which is fine. But the sense of what I'm trying to kind of get to here with some of these examples are folks in leadership positions have got to be true to themselves. This is such a huge change. They have to realize, are they the leader for the next 5 years, or should they actually bring somebody else who understands and is going to be part of the change? And I think that's really what my recommendation for leadership would be.
Yeah, I would agree with all of what Chandra said. I would also add or kind of taking on to the earlier points you made, is that organizations' leaders need to really be thinking about not just the process, but what is the outcome? Who is it that we want to be as an organization in the next 1, 3, 5? Truly thinking about that, and then the other piece of that is then what does AI mean in that? How do we fundamentally start to shift and change our organization? And that a lot of that really right now is an education thing. Do people within your organization have a real understanding and a common understanding of what AI means, and what does that mean for your organization? That's really the starting point, is the education.
That's a great segue for my next question. So we're seeing that organizations are trying to balance, right? Speed, adoption, all of those things. At the same time, not losing, for lack of a better word, their soul as a corporation or the people that work there, right? So how do they manage that balancing act? We could have a summit dedicated just to that question, I think. But you have 30 seconds.
I would say that in general, that organizations, they still need to take a measured approach. That yes, this technology is moving fast, the world, the marketplace is moving fast, but in order for this, again, we talked about all of these projects failing and things not happening the way they think. It's because they're just jumping ahead. And the failing fast, while it's great, with the implications of that failing fast are much larger. And so organizations do need to think and take that measured approach. Start with that education, start with that strategy, start small, and start to just add and bring on, as you start to foundationally bring on your governance, bring on your strategy. Think about all the use cases. Think about, do I have the right organizational structure? But do all of that really upfront, not just kind of jump and fail.
30-second answer would be, I don't think we know yet. If it is a fair market, a lot of the existing companies, a lot of them probably should not survive, but that's really how I see it.
Okay, you gave me back 15 seconds, thank you. So this is the elephant in the room question. Is AI going to replace people or augment them, according to you?
Both.
Yeah, I would agree. It's both. There's going to be jobs that no longer exist, but it's also going to fundamentally change how a lot of us do our work, and it's going to change for sure.
Okay, so this is the last question, and I think this, I guess, is leading us to where we're going, right? So the future of AI, what do you think the next big shift is going to be, given that AI is part of this toolkit?
I think over the next few years, what we're going to see fundamentally shift with AI is not where we are right now. As you said, is this a tool, is this a paradigm shift? That right now, that's still a lot of what it is. That in a few years from now, that we get past that, and it is going to be core. It's going to be as ubiquitous as what we think about with the internet and with mobility and everything else, that it's going to be just part and parcel of who we are, how our organizations, how our society works.
I think we're at a very interesting time right now, in the sense that a lot of the geopolitical situation seems to be trying to strive towards where each of these countries were either 1,000 years ago or 100 years ago or 20 years ago, or the greatness of each of the nations. And I'm talking about every nation, right? I travel and I see, some folks want to go back to where they were 5,000 years ago. Some want to go back to where they were 20 years ago. And I think that is really the biggest challenge. The headwinds on everything that we discussed today is really the human propensity to change and push against the change. And that is really why it takes about 10 years to get to where I think it's going to be fundamentally different. But the change will surely happen. The question really is, which of these paradigms of the past will be replaced by the paradigms of the future? And I don't think we fully comprehend all the paradigms of the future that will kind of come into play because of this fundamental shift that's going on.
So just to follow up to this, because we've got a couple of minutes, is it normal to feel overwhelmed, especially if you're a smaller organization?
100%. We've already seen it over the last decade. The world is just moving faster and faster. We as individuals have to learn so much and know so much more. And so, yes, 100%, it is normal to feel overwhelmed and to be, what do I do? And that's where I come back to with all of this. We need to start with that foundation, that education, and making sure that we all have a common understanding and know where we want to go.
I think I probably have a kind of different view on this, which is, if you look at, so there are two perspectives. There's a perspective of a duck in the water, going faster and faster and faster. But if you were to extract yourself away from the pond and sit on the side of the pond and see the duck, it's still smoothly, slowly kind of going. So I think it's a question of the perspective in terms of overwhelming. The organizations that don't know what the end goal is are basically paddling faster and faster and getting overwhelmed. But those organizations that have a much more clarity in terms of where they're going are sitting on the side and probably have a clearer view of the fact that things are still moving slowly at this point in time towards the end goal. And these are the things that will become a reality for all of us to both comprehend and react to, rather than just overwhelming ourselves. So it's a choice, and I think we'll see where things go. So that's really what my perspective is.
Well, that's a wrap. Thank you, Ravi. Thank you, Chandra. And thank you for all listening in. Thank you.